Let's get it on. Welcome to The Sweat, everybody. Presented by DraftKings, a program we bring you every Saturday and Sunday morning from 8 to 10 Eastern Time on whatever you are watching us on. Right, meow. I am Emerson Lazio, your host for the next 2 hours. Steve Buchanan, Josh Applebaum in the house. Tons of college football with another major slate on tap today. What else is coming up in this show? Let's get after it. We got NHL.com's Xander Duo and Pete Jensen swinging by for a preview of the upcoming season, which starts Tuesday. Starting today, Major League Baseball's divisional round. So we got Bukes here dishing out best bets, plus a WNBA Finals preview as the long-awaited showdown between the Aces and Liberty. That tips tomorrow, but let's start with Thursday Night Football. Yes, congratulations to the Bears for no longer holding the NFL's longest losing streak, taking down the reeling Commanders. Steve, did this result tell you more about Chicago or Washington?
That's tough to say because, the Bears are playing on a high right now. So, let's just focus on this one game,
okay,
right?
Let's do it.
They came into this game 0-4. They got their first win of the season against the Commanders, who I think are actually a pretty decent team themselves.
The Commanders?
The Commanders. I don't think they're really that bad of a team. They actually have a fairly good offense. Sam Howell just almost threw for almost 400 yards in that game.
He looks good, for sure.
But, when you look at the offense that they have, I don't think that they're a bad team. The thing with Chicago is, and it's either going to be unfortunate or not, but if you look at their upcoming schedule, there's a lot of teams coming up that are beatable. And I feel like it could bring a false sense from what this Bear team actually is. They're facing the Vikings, which is I think it's going to be kind of a back and forth game.
Yeah, you never know what you're going to get with Kirk Cousins.
The Raiders, I think you can definitely beat that team.
1,000%.
And then the Chargers could be another shootout type game. So if Justin Fields is going to continue to excel through the air, then that just kind of changes everything, because that's been the biggest knock on him is that, sure, he can run the ball, but when time comes he needs to throw, that's not been his strong point. But if he's going to start throwing like this, now it's been 2 weeks where he's been throwing pretty well, and there are going to be teams coming up that you can throw against. All three of those teams, Vikings, Raiders, Chargers, we could get a little bit of a false sense here on the Bears, because I don't think they're as good as we saw, but it's going to look that way maybe for the next month or so.
So Justin Fields threw the football to 3 different guys. 2 of them were tight ends. The other was DJ Moore, a historic night here, Josh, catching 8 of 10 targets, 230 yards, 3 touchdowns. How many more wins will he and Justin Fields post this season?
So Emerson, if you look at the updated odds here in terms of the futures prices and the win total, the adjusted win total is 5.5 for the Bears, but it's under -170. So as great as that result was, and if you look at a lot of the way the betting public approached this is a big contrarian play for both looking at the over, because we did see this total rise, and with the Bears, because the Bears, this to me speaks to buying low on bad situations. The bad news about their locker room equipment getting stolen, Emerson, and issues with the coaching and Fields. It looked like the sky was falling. But what did the betting market do? You saw late movement go from +7 down to 6 towards Chicago. They win this thing outright. So you have a glimmer of hope here in Chicago, but I think it's a question of, what's your goal this year? Is your goal to maybe cash out on these top 2 picks? They could have pick number 1 and 2 in the draft, Emerson. Right now, Caleb Williams is -500 to go first overall. You could link him up with Marvin Harrison Jr.
I was going to say, oh my God.
And how do you not pass that up, the future versus now? But the win total is 5.5 under -170. Steve ripped off a bunch of games that they could win, but the betting market says, hey, nice win, in prime time, but you're probably still going to win 5 games or less.
Yeah, right? Yeah, Justin Fields throwing 8 touchdowns in a span of 4 or 5 days after that collapse against Denver the game before. Management is looking there like, Justin, stop playing good football. We want Caleb Williams. The combo here does shift to Fields turning a corner. He's been disappointing for the most part here, guys, but a majority of the 2021 class of quarterbacks really has been. Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, now Mac Jones in New England here, guys. What's his future look like with the Pats, Josh? Because he was benched last week, and then he had that weird smirk on the sideline.
He's an idiot.
It doesn't look good right now for New England. I think both coach and quarterback, obviously that Dallas game was super disappointing. Sharps like the Patriots in that game. They were +7 at one point, down to 6. But I think right now, if you look at this game coming up against New Orleans, this is make or break for Mac Jones. Mac Jones, I don't think he was as bad as we saw him making these, across the body, awful decisions. He doesn't have the physical ability, Emerson, to get away with that kind of stuff. Going into the draft, it was, hey, he's the most draft ready because he's got a great mind. He can process the field, may not be the most athletic, but he makes good decisions. So this is a huge game here coming up. If he gets benched again, if he turns the ball over, our colleague Michael Lombardi, he always makes the point that what does Belichick get most upset about? Turnovers and hurting the team. So if Jones continues to hurt the team, you could see Bailey Zappi. I think you might not see Belichick, or there should be a prop bet. Will Jones and Belichick be on the Patriots next year? And I don't know. That's a pick 'em right now, Emerson. We'll have tomorrow's show talking about the Saints game. That line is moving to the Saints. That was Pat's laying 2.5. Now it's down to a pick 'em. I think it's time to get worried here in New England.
Yeah, if Belichick leaves, it won't be his decision because he right now is pursuing that all-time wins record. You just called Mac Jones an idiot. Why?
I absolutely cannot stand this guy. There's 2 quarterbacks in the league I can't stand. Mac Jones, Jimmy Garoppolo. Both came from the Patriots.
Yeah. Jimmy's going to be playing this week, by the way.
Oh,
Had a
fantastic.
concussion
Another loss
protocol.
for the Raiders. When you look at Mac Jones, there's a stat on Pro Football Focus that ranks how many turnover-worthy passes a player or quarterback has thrown. He is tied for the league with 10. And what that basically means is a pass thrown that has a high probability of being intercepted or taking poor care of the ball and fumbling. He has 10. That is tied with Desmond Ridder, who is also on the brink of getting benched at this point by the Falcons. Now you're going up against a Saints team that is good in the secondary. They're good in coverage. Who does Mac Jones have to throw to? Now, some of this, to be fair, probably not his fault.
Yeah.
The Patriots have not given him viable receivers to throw to. You have the corpse of Devontae Parker. You have the corpse of Juju Smith-Schuster. You have 2 tight ends that were great in their heyday, but not so much anymore, and Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki. Who's he going to throw to at this point? But that being said, some of these throws that he's throwing to these corpses of these players have been horrible to begin with. So it's like a double negative at this point. Throw Bailey Zappi in there, see what you have in the kid, and look to the draft next year.
I don't think they believe in Bailey Zappi that much. Let's keep in mind they released him.
You know
He
what
had
I
a
would do,
terrible
too?
preseason,
You know,
and they released him and then brought him back.
You know what I would do too?
What?
If the Vikings continue to fall out of it, trade for Kirk Cousins.
Okay.
Just bring somebody else in.
Is it too late just plugging Kirk Cousins in here with the corpses that you are mentioning Mac Jones is throwing to? Does that really make that much of a difference?
No, it probably won't, but I'm flat out done.
Okay.
I mean, we kind of rag on Zach Wilson, how awful it is to watch Zach Wilson. It is awful to watch Mac Jones on a week-to-week basis go out there and try to play the game of football.
Well, I know every quarterback would love to be throwing to a guy like Cooper Kupp, who is set to return for the Rams tomorrow against the Eagles. What are your expectations for him here, Steve? Philly has looked vulnerable against quarterbacks and in the secondary here.
I don't think there's a big expectation here in this first week back.
Okay.
There's no reason for the Rams to go out there, throw him out there, have him play his normal dose of snaps
So not
and
a
everything.
fat target share.
No, I mean, here's what I think is going to happen. Is I think when he is on the field, he is most likely going to get the majority of those targets when he's on the field. I do not expect him to be playing on a high snap count, though. There's no reason why the Rams should throw him out there and doing that there, especially when you have Nakua, who's been so good for them in the interim here. And I don't really think it's going to affect him too much either, because Cooper Kupp is somebody who's going to be playing primarily in the slot. 51% of his snap counts last year were coming out of the slot, where Nakua has been playing on the right side of the field thus far, about 42% of his snaps. So obviously his target share is going to go down, but I just can't imagine that the Rams are going to go out there and be like, all right, go play your normal snap count here. I think they put him on a pitch count, they have him get back into the groove of the game, and then maybe the week after is where we really start Cooper Kupp coming through.
Josh, how do you think this will impact Nakua's numbers, who has been phenomenal through 4 games here in his rookie year? Eagles top 5 in fantasy points given up to opposing receivers.
Yeah, I think for the team overall, this is great news. You're getting Cooper Kupp back. Obviously, this guy has put up ridiculous numbers, led him to a Super Bowl as well. It's going to hurt Nakua, though, I think, in terms of DFS and fantasy, because now, instead of being the main guy getting all the targets, you're going to spread this ball around a little bit to Cooper Kupp. So if you look at some of these prop bets that we have at DraftKings right now, Kupp's to over-under passing or catching yards, receiving yards, is 60.5. Now, it is juiced up a little bit to the over, minus 125. Nakua's 63.5. minus 115 both sides. But what I did notice, Emerson, is the amount of catches here. Both guys are at 5.5. But if you look at Kupp, it's over 5.5 minus 120, so a little liability to getting 6 catches or more. Nakua is under 5.5 at minus 145. So maybe you look at kind of maybe buying back a little bit here on Nakua, just the fact that he's not going to get as many targets. But I would also say Matthew Stafford, this is a QB that's got to be really happy getting another great target out there. And for the game line, Emerson, this is going to be really interesting to monitor from now until tomorrow, because this is the ultimate Pro versus Joe matchup. The Eagles are a big public play tomorrow, getting like 80% of bets, but the line's going to the Rams. Eagles were at one point, -6, -5. The line's down to 4. Looks like Pro Money is banking on Stafford with these weapons covering the number tomorrow.
Just just real quick too, coming back from a hamstring injury is something obviously you don't want to mess with either. I mean, look at how
No,
many...
you tweak that thing, you're out another 4 or 5 weeks.
Exactly. So that's why I really think like you have to be careful with these props here because I really, really believe that they're going to take it easy on him, especially with that type of injury that he's coming back from.
I mean, real quick here, Steve. Rams 2-2, Steelers 2-2. Steelers offense looks absolutely lost. They hit a low point last week. Almost everyone is blaming offensive coordinator Matt Canada here, but not Najee Harris, who's blaming the players. What needs to change in the Steel City?
I mean, nothing that's really in their control at this point here. Like, coming into this year, it looked like the Steelers were going to be a different team. They were one of the lowest scoring offenses in the league last year, and they're kind of back there again. But the amount of injuries that this team has sustained already has kind of been a big reason for this. I mean, this team's averaging about 15 and a half points per game through the first 4 games of the season. That's kind of where they were last year. And then, like, when they're doing so, when they're getting these wins, they're doing so by less than a touchdown. So these games that they're winning, they're doing it by a very razor-thin margin. I mean, Pickett has an MCL sprain, a bone bruise, Steelers, no Deontay Johnson, no Pat Freiermuth. There's a lot that's really got to overcome moving forward.
Yeah, it's a division rivalry game against the Ravens tomorrow. Mike Tomlin's going to be fired up, but I just don't know if they have the firepower to hang with Baltimore. Okay, Josh, hang out because I need you for some college football best bets coming up right after we put this show on ice, baby. The NHL season starts Tuesday. That is 3 days from now. Who are hockey experts like to hoist Lord Stanley?
3 days, that was good math.
Back here on the Sweat, everybody. Puck drops on the NHL season. Hell, it's pretty much here. Tuesday, a triple header marking the start of the year. Let's bring in two of my faves to preview it all with some bold predictions. Pete Jensen and Anna Dua, two fantasy gurus you will find on NHL.com. First one here, guys. And I'll start with you, ladies first. And I don't think we're going to be going too far out on a limb. Top point getter. Is it another runaway for Connor McDavid?
It absolutely is. I mean, it's Connor McDavid against himself at this point. He's just playing a fun little game of seeing if he can beat himself out year after year and how many points he can get. So if anyone says anyone else, that's not a bold prediction. That's just a lie. However, I think there may be competition for the second spot with Leon Draisaitl this year. I could see a lot of the guys getting up there. Jack Hughes of the Devils, maybe. Austin Matthews looking to have a bounce back year if he absolutely tears it up. Maybe he's in that conversation. Nathan MacKinnon, if he stays healthy, is definitely the front runner in that regard, but it's absolutely Connor McDavid versus the field.
Yeah, no question. There's more added pressure here on Edmonton to finally break through, at least even more than they did last year. Can't be wasting McDavid and Draisaitl's time together much longer, Pete. Who is McDavid's biggest competition here?
Well, Anna mentioned Jack Hughes. We have him not projected. It's a bold prediction. So on NHL.com/fantasy for 125 plus points to finish number 2. I could see that happening, especially after the addition of Tyler Toffoli. Couple other guys to keep an eye on. Jason Robertson, Dallas Stars. The guy just keeps getting better and better each year. Hit 100 plus points last year. Maybe he takes it a step further. Kucherov has gotten to 128 before. His line is still intact with Braden Point and Brandon Hagel. Despite the injury to Vasilevsky, that trio has an enormous ceiling. And then the elephant in the room, the biggest storyline of the offseason, how good is Connor Bedard going to be immediately? We don't know the answer to that question, so I guess factor him into the scoring title, at least down the road, but potentially as early as this season.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how much he accelerates the Blackhawks rebuild as well, Pete. We can predict like a few superlatives, and we'll get to Bedard here in a second. Who's going to be old reliable, though, this season? A guy that you find yourself rostering over and over and over again because of his consistent play and performance, Pete?
So I'll answer this with the Buffalo Sabres. I think they're going to provide so much fantasy appeal this season, whether you spend up for the top guys like Rasmus Dahlin and Tage Thompson, or even some of those guys in the middle. I mean, look at the performance of Zach Benson, the sleeper rookie in the preseason. He's lighting it up. He's playing up top with Skinner and Thompson. There's also J.J. Peterka, the German-born forward that I think is knocking at the door. And maybe, who knows, down the road could be like the next Leon Draisaitl if Tage Thompson is the best player on the team. They also have Alex Tuck. And Owen Power is a guy that like quietly produced at a high clip relative to his age at the position on defense last season. And as good as Dahlin is, Owen Power is coming in hot here, and Devin Levi could have 30, 35 wins. I guess my answer would be Zach Benson and J.J. Peterka, but like this team is loaded, and they're probably going to end their playoff drought this season, so I'd tap into them in fantasy.
Yeah, clearly a nice, young, talented forward group there in Buffalo. Hometown team, I believe, of Patrick Kane, one of the rumored landing spots for him. What do you think here, Anna? Who's going to be old reliable for you?
My answer is a goaltender, and it's got to be Ilya Sorokin when I'm looking at an individual player, just because if the Islanders make the postseason this year, it's going to be because of Ilya Sorokin, just the way it was last year. He had a career best year in terms of wins last year. He has been phenomenal his entire career in the NHL. This guy's always super stable, and you can have a little bit of a sigh of relief knowing that he performs well despite how well or how poorly the team around him is playing. So when I'm looking at someone who is known for being reliable, for me, that has to be Ilya Sorokin right now.
Yeah, and Pete, you've already mentioned Bedard, the hype, the talent that kid has. I know the Blackhawks are hoping that he will be the answer to that previous question, but who is most likely to beat out this kid for the Calder Trophy, if anyone?
I mean, this is the most stacked rookie class that I've ever seen. I think that as much as you could talk up Logan Cooley with the flash and pizzazz of the preseason that he showed in Australia, and ever since for the Coyotes, who are an up-and-coming team that Anna and I both like. There's also Devin Levi, There hasn't been a Calder Trophy winner at the goaltending position since 2009, Steve Mason. I mean, that is ages ago. That position might be due. And then don't count out like a guy like Adam Fantilli that was passed up in the draft by not only Bedard, but Carlson in Anaheim. I mean, I feel like he's probably a little disrespected, and the Blue Jackets have a high ceiling, at least from an offensive standpoint. Like if Fantilli's out there as the number one center with the likes of Patrick Laine and Johnny Gaudreau, I mean, sign me up for that as a fantasy sleeper for sure.
And does anyone else out there check as many boxes that you'd be looking for in a Calder Trophy candidate?
As Connor Bedard? No, absolutely not. It's his trophy to lose this year, but I'll agree with Pete a little bit that, like, if you really want to get a stretch pick for this award, and it's not going to happen, so I'm not endorsing this, I would take a look at Devin Levi, because you can't really compare skaters with goalies as easily as you can compare skaters with other skaters. And Levi, if he's the go-to guy in Buffalo on this far improved Sabres team, maybe he has a shot. The only other skater I could possibly think of would be Logan Cooley, because if we look back to the World Junior Championships that just happened, Connor Bedard was the biggest storyline, but if he wasn't in that tournament, Logan Cooley would be the next guy up. He was like a goal per game in that tournament, and he's a phenomenal player. We saw it in the preseason as well, but it's really, really going to be tough to beat up Bedard this year.
Well, Cooley lit up social media with that goal in the preseason. Anna, who's going to be this year's social media darling? Like, whether their play on the ice, whether it's that, or we're talking their social media presence here?
It's going to be tough to beat out Trevor Zegras. I think he's just like amping himself up in the offseason right now to be like the social media darling of the NHL year after year. I think he's like dating Dixie D'Amelio right now, which adds a little bit of clout for him as well. But it's going to be tough to beat out that guy. They're trying to get Jack Hughes to do it. He's not really falling for that trap right now. I'm sure he's going to dazzle and be in every highlight we see this year. But off the ice, Trevor Zegras, or maybe I'm going to give a shout out to Jeff Skinner too. His like little segment that he does up in Buffalo is hilarious. It's phenomenal content. So I got to give Jeff Skinner a nod of the cap as well.
Pete, who gets your nod here, dude?
I'm going to go with the Hughes family. I mean, they got Quinn out in Vancouver as the new captain for the Canucks. And then you got Luke and Jack in New Jersey on this, not only on the same team, they're going to be on the ice together all the time, even strength, and on the power play, I think. With all due respect to Dougie Hamilton, Luke Hughes is coming up fast. They're rooming together. I think you're going to see some cool content on the side with those two guys. And my goodness, if the Devils weren't Stanley Cup contenders last season, adding Toffoli, adding a full season of Luke Hughes and some of their other young talent, as long as they get stable goaltending, this could be a real cup contender in the next 2 to 3 years.
Well, speaking of cup contender here, Pete, give me right now, before the season starts, it's on Tuesday, your cup matchup prediction right now.
I'm going to go with the Edmonton Oilers beating the Carolina Hurricanes. The Hurricanes, got really far last year to the Final Four despite their injuries, especially Svechnikov. But I feel like with Edmonton having two goalie options and Stuart Skinner, who was a Calder Trophy finalist last year, and also a bounce-back candidate in Jack Campbell, that's enough insulation for me. Remember, they got Matthias Ekholm down the stretch last season. They were a completely different team. Had they beaten Vegas in the second round, I think they would have gone on to win the whole thing. So McDavid, Draisaitl, RNH, Evander Kane, Zach Hyman, this team is loaded. They even got Connor Brown, McDavid's old running mate in the Canadian Hockey League, to lace up and join on. And he might play with McDavid on the same line this year. So that could be ridiculous combinations left and right. I'm going with the Oilers.
Oilers gave the Golden Knights more of a fight than any other postseason team. Anna, what do you got?
I am nothing if not loyal, so I'm running it back again this season. Big shocker. I have the Carolina Hurricanes beating the Dallas Stars in the Stanley Cup final. First, talking about Dallas, they have Jake Ottinger, who's going to be one of the best goalies, if not the best goalie in the NHL rather soon. The kid's a stud. Rupe Hintz, Jason Robertson, the list goes on and on. They added Matt Duchene, so they're a solid team. We've seen them be solid in the postseason quite a few times, and they're right at the cusp, so I think they make it to the Stanley Cup final. But there's no team that's as deep and as exciting as the Carolina Hurricanes. Pete talked about how Edmonton had two goalies. Carolina has three. I think they have the deepest D-core in the NHL, and if they have a healthy Andrei Svechnikov this season, that was like their biggest blow last year. They had some tough luck. This team's going to be unstoppable. It's Carolina's year.
Pete, Anna, we've only just begun. Thanks for hanging with us here on The Sweat. Coming up, Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher. We are revisiting the off-season feud and what to expect when these two collide later today. What's up, everybody? Back here on The Sweat. I'm Emerson Lancia. This man is Josh Applebaum. Josh, I don't know about you, but I'm old enough to remember Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher's extremely public war of words ahead of the 2022 season. Remember Saban making a comment about the Aggies, like, buying their recruiting class, and then Fisher responding by calling a press conference, by the way, where he blasted Alabama's coach, calling him a narcissist. Here's a little taste of that, just in case you forgot.
But I know the consequence is going to be difficult for the people who are spending tons of money to get players. And you've read about them. You know who they are. I mean, we were second in recruiting last year. A&M was first. A&M bought every player on their team, made a deal for name, image, and likeness. All right, we didn't buy one player. All right, but I don't know if we're going to be able to sustain that in the future because more and more people are doing it.
First of all, I'll say it's a shame that we have to do this. It's really despicable. It's despicable that somebody can say things about somebody and an organization. More importantly, 17-year-old kids. You're taking shots at 17-year-old kids and their families. That they broke state laws. That they're all money. We bought every player on this group. We never bought anybody. No rules were broken. Nothing was done wrong. It was all in the way we do things, the ethics in which we do things. And these families, it's despicable that a reputable head coach could come out and say this when he doesn't get his way or things don't go his way. The narcissist in him doesn't allow those things to happen. And it's ridiculous. But when he's not on top, and the parity in college football he's been talking about, go talk to coaches who coach for him. You'll find out all the parity. Go dig into wherever he's been. You can find out anything. And it's a shame that you got to sit here and defend 17-year-old kids and families and Texas A&M because we do things right. We're always going to do things right. But we're always going to be here. Some people think they're God. Go dig into how God did his deal. You may find out about a guy that a lot of things you don't want to know. We built him up to be the czar of football. Go dig into his past or anybody that's ever coached with him. You can find out anything you want to find out, what he does and how he does it. And it's despicable.
Oh, that's a spicy meatball. Check out the drama-filled timeline. So when these two battle on and off the field, the college football world stops and takes notice. And Josh, just in recent matchups too, Fisher has proven to be the thorn in Saban's side. You can't forget the shockwaves he sent through football and the community with that outright win 2 years ago. Last year, Aggies not only made the game close, but also managed to cover. So let's fast forward to today. Bama is less than a field goal favorite in College Station. Which side are you giving the upper hand to? Right, meow.
So I like the angle here for Texas A&M today, Emerson. You mentioned, Fisher's been a thorn in the side of Saban. I think that continues today. Nice. The betting market is really proving that. Number one, look at how short this line is. Bama's only laying 2.5.
Yeah.
I mean, you never see this ever with Bama. You go back the last decade or more, they're usually laying, 7 points, 15, 20, 30 points. I mean, this line is so short that the public's, I think, maybe falling into a bit of a trap here because if you look at the betting percentages, VSiN.com coming directly from DraftKings, 86% of bets are on Alabama. That is one of the most lopsided games of the day. It's also the second most heavily bet game of the day, aside from the Red River rivalry. So just from the standpoint of everybody being on Bama in a really public bet spot, I automatically look toward A&M as a contrarian play. You walk into any bar today, Emerson, everyone's going to be holding an Alabama ticket under a field goal. How do you not lay that number? However, even though this is so lopsided toward Alabama, the line's falling toward A&M. This game opened Alabama laying 3. It's down to 2.5. Even at certain points throughout the week, this got down to close to a pick'em. A couple shops in Vegas were down to a pick'em. You did see some buyback when it bottomed out. It's still now at 2.5. But you're starting to see game day steam maybe get back down to 2. So just from the standpoint of everyone on Bama, yet line going A&M, they're only getting 14% of bets. It's also kind of the ultimate just buy low, sell high play, an unranked team at home against a ranked opponent. Also, you look at some correlative betting value here. You're on a dog in a very low total game. Total in this game is 46, Emerson.
I was going to say, it's going to be a defensive battle, and I think a lot of people believe that favors the Crimson Tide.
I think so, too. And also, if you look at some of these numbers, Emerson, Texas A&M has been the better team. You wouldn't really think that because they're unranked. But if you look at the offense, they're averaging 443 yards a game versus 363. Big difference here in terms of throwing through the air, 283 a game versus 195. And then the better defense as well. They're giving up 254 yards a game versus around 300 for Alabama. So you see this all the time in college sports. A big, franchise, big school, just that public bias in favor of that team. But I got to stay true to the market. Public's Bama, Lions going A&M. Give me A&M plus 2.5.
Yeah, that A&M defense has been great with the exception of the Miami debacle. And Saban's comments earlier this week, he's correct, emphasizing the weight of the matchup that it holds today. Winner will gain sole possession of first in the SEC West. So that, meanwhile, will be a defensive battle. The Red River rivalry, this is when you have like 100 points like combined year in and year out. There was a boatload of them last year, but all just on one side. So Oklahoma, Texas here. What's a bet that stands out to you on the DK Sportsbook?
I like Oklahoma in this spot, Emerson. So number one, you mentioned the total. It opened a little bit lower than previous years, 58.5. It is up to 60. I mean, we've seen some totals here like 65, 70 over the past few years. But I got to go with this angle toward Oklahoma in this spot. So number one, we just talked about, public Bama, yet line going to A&M. Same sort of thing here. Public's all over Texas, yet the line's going to Oklahoma. This opened Texas at some shops. I saw one shop -7 opener, -6.5. Those numbers are now down to 5.5, and some shops are down to 5. So we've seen this line move toward Oklahoma, even though Texas is the big public play. This is the most heavily bet game of the day, Emerson. One thing I learned when I kind of learned about contrarian betting and betting against the public, the whole mindset is go to the games with the most public action. So if you look at the ticket count on this game, nationally televised, this has by far and away the most tickets written on it, and it's super heavy with Texas, almost 80%. You also look at conference dogs. We look toward conference games. We saw an angle yesterday with Nebraska coming through on the road to Illinois. But those conference games, it's kind of like division games in the NFL. Just that rivalry, that familiarity kind of leads to tighter games. So you have that angle if you're with Oklahoma. Better passing offense as well. Dylan Gabriel's been great since he's come to Oklahoma. They're averaging 352 yards through the air, only 287 for Texas here. It's a neutral site, even though it is in Texas. So I think, maybe not as lopsided as if it was just in Austin here. But I want a dog who can score, Emerson. If you're going to bet on a dog, you got to either keep pace or backdoor cover.
Okay.
I think Oklahoma's got the offense to do that. Again, this is a public Texas play, but Lions going to the Sooners. Give me Sooners. Try to get a 5.5 if you can.
Undefeated powerhouses. The winner will be in sole possession of the top spot in the Big 12. Julian, by the way, will join us in the next block. He's going to tell us what his approach is to betting the Red River rivalry. Wazoo, UCLA. Both teams coming off a bye week here. I don't know about you, but I'm looking forward to this quarterback duel here between Cam Ward and Dante Moore. These teams haven't played since the Bruins won in a 67-63 shootout back in 2019. So how are you going to navigate this one?
This is one of my favorite system matches, Emerson. It's both college basketball and in college football. It's when you have an unranked home favorite against a ranked opponent. So look who's favored in this game. It's UCLA. It's not Washington State. Washington State's 4-0. They're ranked 13th in the country. Yet UCLA is the favorite, laying 3.5 points. What's going on here? I think if you go on Twitter, you're going to hear a lot of people say the wrong team is favored. That's kind of another public trap that sometimes casual bettors fall into. But no, the odds makers are setting these numbers with their legit power ratings in mind. But I think this is a great angle to back UCLA, specifically on the money line, around -170. Number one, public's all over Wazoo. They're getting 81% of bets. Again, I don't blame the public. How do you not take the ranked team getting points? Seems like an obvious play. But if it looks too good to be true, it seems too obvious, usually there's a reason for it. So even though UCLA is only getting 19% of bets, Emerson, this game opened UCLA -3.
Okay.
It's up to 3.5.
All right.
Why is the line going to UCLA if everyone's taking Wazoo?
I can tell you last 5 meetings have been one-score games between these two teams.
Exactly, and I think the Sharps are banking on one-score game in favor of UCLA here. You look at that system I mentioned, unranked home fave versus ranked opponent. It's 56% against the spread since 2017. We had one last week, Emerson, where Kentucky beat Florida in the same exact spot. Why was Kentucky favored when Florida was ranked? UCLA has a big advantage defensively. They're only giving up 263 yards a game versus 382 for Wazoo. So I love this angle. I play it every single time, whether it's college basketball or college football. Looks fishy, doesn't make sense. I'll take that unranked home favorite. Give me UCLA on the money line, -170.
Few people expected Missouri to enter October with 2 more wins than LSU, but here we are. So your bet du jour is
Mizzou. Taking Mizzou on the points here, Emerson.
It's one of your favorite ones, right?
It's one of my favorite ones. Yeah, I think this really just is right up my alley in terms of kind of a sharp move and continued liability on one side. So if you look toward the way this thing opened, number one, LSU, they're ranked 23rd. They're 3-2. I think the obvious thought with LSU is, hey, they lost against Ole Miss. They're definitely going to bounce back and have a great game today. But what's the market doing? Even though around 60% of bets are on LSU, this line has pretty much shown all liability toward Mizzou. It opened LSU -6.5. It's down to 5.5. It actually got down to, I think, 4 or 4.5 throughout the week. So it might have been a little buyback when it got down to -4 LSU. But this just tells me all liability has been on Mizzou. They have that line movement in their favor, conference dog angle. And then also defensively, Emerson. LSU just hasn't been great defensively. They're giving up 429 yards a game. Mizzou's been better, only giving
Yeah.
up 317, and their rush defense, Mizzou's only giving up 75 yards on the ground versus 169 for LSU. So I would have loved the key number of 6. That's gone with Mizzou, but I'll take the 5.5 and take that home team, maybe pull an upset even.
LSU trying to prevent a full-on tailspin here. Meanwhile, Missouri trying to maintain a tie for first in the SEC East. They haven't been, the Tigers, 6-0 since 2013 when it won the East. All right, Josh, great work. We have Julian standing by here, ready to give his takes on today's college football slate and his expectations for Texas quarterback Quinn Ewers, who, by the way, just signed an NIL deal with 7-Eleven. Yeah, he's fired up, ready to go. Little Slurpee action. Don't mind if I do. Back here on the Sweat, everybody. Julian Edlow has joined the program now. 4 games today between top 25 teams. The highlight being the Red River Showdown, which never disappoints. But you look at these 2 teams right now, Jules, and we're looking at 2 teams with completely different strength of schedules. And both head coaches had something to say about that this week.
You know, Red River rivalry. It's why we're in college football, right? To be part of games like this. 2 undefeated teams, 2 top 25 teams. You know, the spotlight of college football will be on us. I think that the beauty for us, this will be our 3rd top 25 matchup now in 6 games. And every team we've played has got a winning record and is doing good things. So I think that we've been exposed to some high-level football now through 5 weeks. And naturally, we understand the emotions that will come with this game and different things. I think it's critical for us that we have a great week of preparation, that we take it one day at a time, and then we go with the mindset to execute on Saturday.
This is probably the first week of the season that y'all want to actually talk about this week's opponent, right? I would expect we've got a bunch of Texas questions, and but excited about where we're at right now. As I said after our game, we're making incremental improvement every week, and we've become more efficient in all the areas that we really focused on in the out of season. Players have worked incredibly hard.
All right, first time since 2011, these 2 teams, Jules, are meeting with undefeated records. What's the play in this one?
Yeah, it's a big one. In all likelihood, a preview of the Big 12 title game that we're going to see that first weekend, first Saturday in December. Texas is the better team in my mind, but the number is getting pretty high. You know, look-ahead lines over the summer were as low as 3.5. We've seen this at times touch a touchdown during the week, which if you're giving me 7, I'll probably lean Oklahoma. I ultimately think the total, which has come down, maybe due to Texas just being 1-4 to the over, is a little too low. We saw Texas blow out this game 49-0 last year. I think I can count on them to score their points. Oklahoma's defense has improved, but not to the point that they're going to shut down an offense like Texas. And you know the Oklahoma offense, which has been going since week 1, is going to show up and put points on the board after that shutout last year, maybe look to send a message. I just think I'm most confident that there's going to be points in this game rather than pick a side, although I lean Texas win, but would play the +7 if it was Oklahoma.
It's crazy. 8 of the last 10 matchups have been decided by 1 score, but only one of those games was by less than 5 points. From one ranked battle to another here, Jules, LSU and Missouri, how tricky is this one to navigate?
I think it's a bounce-back spot for LSU. Okay. LSU and Ole Miss obviously had a wild SEC showdown last Saturday night. Track meet, high-scoring game. LSU had its chances, but couldn't score the one drive that they needed to, and couldn't get a stop the one drive that they needed to. So I think they're the better team. I think they bounce back here. I think that this is a spot where you have the lower-ranked team laying points on the road. That tells you something. It tells you what this LSU team should be. And if they want to have a chance to win this division and play in the SEC title game in Atlanta, they're going to have to show out in this game. So nothing against Mizzou, who I think is a really good team, and I've backed them in certain spots as a home dog, but I don't think this is the spot. I think the talent discrepancy is going to be too much. LSU's defense steps up and get a couple of stops, and the offense just won't be slowed down. 3 straight weeks now Mizzou has covered. How about Maryland? 5-0, its best start since 2001. On the road at 4th-ranked Ohio State. Dude, the shoe has never been kind to the Terps. So they've lost 4 games there by an average of 47 freaking points. What kind of chance you giving Maryland today? Give me Maryland. Not outright, of course, but with the points. You mentioned that number. They have not done well at the Horseshoe, but they have played Ohio State pretty well overall lately, including last year when Ohio State went on the road to Maryland and really struggled to pull away with that game. So I think this Maryland team, 5-0, they have all the pieces offensively, they have the quarterback, and they have enough to keep this within 20 or so points. I think that the number is a little out of control, even on the road in a place that they haven't played well. So I'm going to buy into Maryland a little bit and say that they have developed enough to the point where they can go on the road and keep this one close.
All right, Washington State at UCLA. We heard from Josh earlier. He really likes to target this game. The Cougars sitting at 13 in the polls. They're road dogs. They've been a super dog this season, a matter of fact. 2 outright upsets. What stops them from doing it again?
Yeah, so the market, what Josh is saying, has to be that you have the unranked home favorite against a ranked team coming in. You've got to lay those points with UCLA. I like UCLA. The spot points to UCLA. But I really like Washington State this season. So this is one that I haven't played yet, but if I do, it's Washington State or pass for me. And I'm going against what the sharp play would be here. But the market's been off on Wazoo all season. They were home underdogs in a spot that I loved them against Oregon State. They came out on top. They were home underdogs in a spot that I loved them against Wisconsin. They came out on top. A little bit different. We're going to learn more about Cam Ward and company here going on the road for a big game versus playing at home. But Chip Kelly has not been good as a home favorite during his tenure at UCLA. This is a spot that I think might be getting overthought a little bit. I think Wazoo might be for real. I would play them as the road dog here.
How about Bama hitting the road to take on Texas A&M and one of the most anticipated SEC West showdowns in this year's slate? This one's fueled by Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher's off-season feud here. So which side do you feel like backing?
Yeah, so this is a game that I played about 5 or so look-ahead lines over the summer before the season. One of them being Texas A&M plus 8.5. So I'm in at a good number here, and I'm going to let that ride. But if I'm playing it here, my lean is to A&M, even at the short number. Alabama really struggles on the road overall. We've seen that this season. Didn't see it last week, but we've seen it this season at times, and we saw it for sure last week at times, and we saw it 2 years ago when Alabama was a much better team and went on the road to Texas A&M and lost as big favorites. A&M came in to Tuscaloosa last year and had a chance to win that game on the last possession. They went down to the goal line, down 4, couldn't ultimately get it into the end zone. This is just a game where Jimbo plays Nick Saban really tough, and Alabama hasn't been all that great on the road. It's kind of the perfect storm. I'm very surprised it's not the night game. I would like Texas A&M even more.
It's that 3:30 window.
Game. It's an afternoon window. Still, A&M are nothing for you here.
Yeah, and Jalen Milroe has started to settle in as a starter for the Crimson Tide there.
He has.
Tough times for Iowa, Jules. Lost their quarterback to a season-ending knee injury here, so a bad offense really going from bad to even worse. Does Purdue have enough here to pull off the upset?
No, I love the buy low spot on the Hawkeyes here at home. You're getting minus 130 on the money line to start the week. We knew that McNamara was going to be out. It's an ACL. He's done for the year. It's unfortunate. But I don't think the backup was all that bad coming in relief against Michigan State on Saturday night. We saw 6 drop passes by the Iowa wide receivers. Yeah. That can't happen again. But you bring some of those in, you probably win with more margin there. I think with the backup getting the chance to play the whole week with the ones, get all that work in, and be prepared for a Purdue team that hasn't been all that great this year. They have a losing record, and they've played 4 of their 5 games at home. Now you got to go hostile environment against an elite defense and special teams unit. Special teams unit won Iowa the game on Saturday night on the road. I don't think it's going to go well for them there, so I don't think Iowa needs much on offense to get this one, and they will get it done with the backup quarterback in there.
Well, this week it's a much more manageable matchup for Deion Sanders in Colorado,
Very much.
Against Arizona State. What catches your eye in the DK Sportsbook with this one?
I will say, there's been a lot of times that Colorado has been the talk of the market during the week. I think they're a little short this week. Arizona State is not good. I know they have to go on the road here, but Arizona State is not good at all. I think that Colorado should be able to score here, and even with the poor defense, I don't know if Arizona State's going to be able to keep up. So laying 4 or so, or if you want to use them as a money line parlay piece, the Buffs, that is, with a much larger favorite, I think that's fine. So I think this is a spot we learned a lot about Colorado last week in terms of their toughness, their ability to hang in. They have a ton of really tough games that they're going to lose in the Pac-12 remaining on that schedule, but this Saturday is not one of them.
Baylor, after that historic comeback against UCF, welcomes in Texas Tech. Why'd you want to hit on this game?
I like Texas Tech here. It's a spot, Baylor just went all out to let you down.
Yeah, that's
there.
Right. My Knights, frauds.
That's 35 to 7
yeah,
with 4 minutes left in the third quarter.
It was embarrassing.
It's almost mathematically impossible to lose that game. I know you're not much of a math major over here, Emerson.
Us Florida guys are not.
Yeah, but that did happen, and this has to lead to a letdown spot. Baylor also got a little dinged up towards the end of that game. I know they're at home here, but they haven't played all that well anywhere this season except for that 19 minutes of lightning in a bottle that they caught against UCF. Texas Tech a couple of letdowns to begin the season, but this team had a drive to potentially beat Oregon at home early in the year. They are a good team. I think they go on the road here and knock Baylor off in a pick 'em type of game.
All right, very quickly here. 24th ranked Fresno State visiting Wyoming. What you want to do?
Wyoming is one of those teams at home as a 14-point underdog that beat Texas Tech to begin the season. Laramie is a tough place to play. They always seem to get teams there. Give me the home dog in that one with the points.
I have covered a game there before. There is a dude who is naked in a barrel just running around the stands. Yeah, he was wild. It was fun. That's the game day environment in Laramie. Shout out to all the good people
He's got to be worth some points.
That's right. That's right. Move over. There's room in that barrel. Okay, everybody, you're done, Jules. We got to take,
especially with that.
We got to take a break here. On the other side, we're going to turn our attention to the divisional round of the MLB playoffs starting today. Best bets for all the games coming up next. Hour 2 of the Sweat is underway. Yes, we will continue to break down some of the biggest games around college football coming up when Stormy joins the program.
Oh, she's great.
Yeah?
No, she's great.
She is awesome. A WNBA Finals preview is on tap. Brandon Glasheen, voice of the Connecticut Sun, who are no longer alive in the postseason, will be here in studio with us to preview that. Plus, which 2-2 NFL teams are pretenders, which ones are contenders? You guys are going to play a fun little game of tic-tac-bro, huh?
That's not what it's called, but close enough.
Okay, cool. I'll nail down the name eventually. Anywho, let's get cooking here on the Diamond. Divisional round starts today. More bad news, though, for one of the teams just swept in the wild card round.
That was a real shocker, too.
Yeah, no, I mean, is it really? Is this
That
really?
the Marlins got swept?
Okay,
Yeah,
I thought you meant more of the injury here,
no.
because Marlins right-hander Sandy Alcantara, the reigning NL Cy Young Award recipient, will miss the entire 2024 season after undergoing Tommy John surgery. He announced on his Instagram on Friday. You are seeing it on your screen. So recovery from this operation, dudes, we know it takes about 12 months. But teams in recent years have been giving their pitchers closer to 14. So that timetable would put him back to 100% in time for spring training in 2025. Today, Saturday, brings a 4-game slate here of postseason baseball, beginning with Rangers, Orioles, ending with Diamondbacks, Dodgers, Twins, Astros, Phillies, Braves sandwiched in there. I don't think the Marlins were really, though, a team you believed in, Steve.
No.
But them being swept by Philly, real quick, looking back at the wild card round, what was your biggest surprise of that round?
4 sweeps. 4 sweeps.
And we had 3 last year in this round, too.
And here's the bad part. I'm all for expanding the playoffs. It's fun. Like the National League wild card chase through the final couple weeks of the season was awesome. And then you get this wild card round. It was horrible.
Yeah, it's been
absolutely
a dud, dude.
horrible. There was no drama. There was nothing in that. I mean, the Twins needed 3 runs to sweep the Toronto Blue Jays. The Tampa Bay Rays, who people coronated as the World Series winner in mid-April,
I know.
scored 1 run in the playoffs to be swept in that series against the Rangers, who put up 11 runs against the quote-unquote best pitching rotation in the playoffs against the Tampa Bay Rays.
Okay.
I don't know what... Oh, I'm not done.
Oh, my bad, baby.
I don't
My
know
bad.
what needs to be done, but the wild card round in Major League Baseball has been atrocious for 2 years now. And you're letting these mediocre mid-teams in, like the Marlins, with a negative 57 run differential into the playoffs and basically give the Phillies 2 extra regular season games to get a tune-up ready for their series with Atlanta.
Josh, if you were just listening to Steve's rant there, the wild card round stunk, all sweeps, not one thrilling game. Does baseball need to go back to the 1-game wild card playoff format?
I thought that was great. I'm surprised they got
I
rid of
like
that.
it.
You
Also,
like it?
remember there
Okay,
used to be the 5-game series, back in the day too, as well. That would give you at least for bettors. I think the disappointing thing as bettors is we wanted more baseball. Having all these sweeps deprived us of a bunch of games here that we could have had, with teams, fighting back and forcing, kind of a 1-game, win all in the end. So I think from a betting standpoint, disappointing we didn't have more games to get down on. Upsets in terms of Texas beating Tampa Bay. Obviously, they were a dog in that matchup. And Arizona, even though Sharps really like the D-backs, I know there's a lot of line movement toward Arizona in that spot. Milwaukee disappointed. But I would just say I think the one team that is happy about all these sweeps is the Baltimore Orioles, because the Orioles, if they were going to go up against Tampa Bay, that would have been, I think, a tough series. You probably would have been favored still in that, but that's a team in your division. Those divisional matchups in the postseason are always tend to be tight. The Orioles right now, plus 275 to win the American League. That's second best. The Astros are plus 180. They're the favorite. But I think this is a good angle to back Baltimore. If they can get by Texas, maybe match up against Houston, I could see them maybe make a run of the World Series. They're plus 650. I like the Orioles because the fact that Tampa Bay lost.
Man, the AL East needs Baltimore to do something. Otherwise, you could label that entire division frauds.
Playoff frauds, yeah.
Can't really do it there for the NL East, though. Braves, Phillies ready just for an awesome back-and-forth heavyweight bout. Braves go 8-5 against Philadelphia this year, Stephen. Phillies plus 140 underdogs in the series. How are you going to approach this?
This is a tough series. This is a really tough series, but I thought what was kind of eye-opening was that the Braves are minus 175 to win this series. That gives them an implied winning percentage of 64% based off those odds there. this should be a closer series. And I think
Yeah.
people are giving them credit
Phillies
for.
lineup is flying high. They scored
Phillies
11
lineup
runs
is very
across those two
good.
games.
I think, and the Phillies could potentially have the pitching advantage here
Yeah.
too, as we await for word on what Max Fried's status is going to be for this series. He's dealing with some blister injuries, so that could potentially take him out because I think he's currently lined up to start Game 2 if he's able to do so. And then Spencer Strider. Like, I know that this guy gets his flowers all the time. He's got amazing strikeout numbers. He was not good down the stretch at all. During the second half of the season, 4.39 ERA, second and third time through the order for the year. His ERA was in the mid-4s. Like, he was not strong later in these games as well. The only problem is you have Ranger Suarez going today for the Phillies. You're going up against one of the best hitting offenses against lefties in the league in the Atlanta Braves. So there is a good potential that the Braves could take this game 1 here because at least the pitching matchup from this game favors the Braves. But overall, I feel like Philly has the pitching advantage here, and we'll see how that comes into play because this is a 5-game series. So I would lean Atlanta, but boy, if Philly can get a win here in Game 1, that might be tough for the Braves to come back.
Well, let's not forget, Josh, when the Phillies faced Strider in the postseason last year, they knocked him out in the third inning by scoring 5 runs en route to that exact kind of division upset that they're looking for again this year.
Yeah, so I think this is kind of the age-old question, Emerson. Would you rather have momentum and coming off a win, or would you rather have rest and be ready to go here? Obviously, with your starting pitchers, your bullpen, you got to like the fact even position players with the Braves are rested and ready to go. I do think this line seems a bit high, -175 with Atlanta, +145 with Philly. Just mentioned the fact that, you get to these divisional matchups, a lot of familiarity. Typically, you do see the dog kind of perform a little bit better because they know what to expect. But I keep going back to one angle here, Emerson. If you look at run differential, +231 for the Braves, wire-to-wire, best team in baseball, +81 for Philly. So just kind of speaks to the great lineup the Braves have, the rest that they've been able to accrue here and get ready for this matchup. And also had the best record in baseball, 104-58. So I like the Braves to win this series. I think it could be tight. There's a prop out there, Philly +1.5 games. You can look toward kind of a spread play here if it's a 3-2 series win for the Atlanta Braves. Also, Spencer Strider, big favorite today. He's -200 on this line. I did notice though his Ks are 8.5 under at like -140. Last 2 starts against Philly, he struck out 9 and he struck out 11. Do they have a shorter leash though in the postseason? Does he get in trouble and they pull him? Kind of interesting that he's gone over this number last 2 times, yet it's juiced up under. I might buy low and take that under 8.5 for Strider today.
Bukes, another divisional rivalry for the second NLDS matchup. Dodgers, Diamondbacks, +170 for the D-backs on the series money line. They went 5-8 against LA in the regular season. How does this one play out?
This is another tough series. Like truly, like this is everything that we wish we could get in the wild card round. Now the Dodgers are the biggest favorites of these 4 matchups here to win here. They're at -215. Total games for this one set at least over 3.5. That's at -295. But where the series is going to be really figured out here is if the Diamondbacks can get some early leads against the Dodgers. I think the Dodgers rotation, and maybe people don't really think about this, the Dodgers rotation is actually not that great. Not like we've seen in the Dodgers past year when they had some of those elite guys in the front half of their rotation. Right now, it's looking like it's Clayton Kershaw, Bobby Miller, and Lance Lynn are going to be your games 1 through 3 starters. That's not exactly like the Dodgers rotation that you'd expect here. Now, the Dodgers' biggest strength is their bullpen. So it is crucial for the Diamondbacks to get these early leads through like the first 5 innings here because they need to get those early leads because the Dodgers' bullpen is literally like a shutdown. Like if you get into that bullpen and you're behind, there's a good chance you're going to be losing this game here. But this game does start in LA, of course. That's where the Dodgers average over 5.5 runs per game. Their offense has been phenomenal. That's not a question here. But if the Diamondbacks were to pull an upset here, they have to get to that rotation. And I think they have the offense where they can do that. They got some big hitters in that Diamondbacks lineup. People are not giving them the respect that they are. When all is said and done, I would not be surprised if the Dodgers come out of this here. But I think that the Diamondbacks are very much live here as underdogs. I think they could come in here and possibly overwhelm the Dodgers in the first half of these games. That might be enough.
All right, Josh, what are you targeting here in this series?
I like the Dodgers to win this series. It's -215. It's a little bit pricey. That price is probably going to have a lot of people, staying away from the Dodgers. A lot of times, I think when you see in these futures prices, it's just an automatic give me the dog because of the plus money. But I think the Dodgers are in a really good spot. You know, if you go back the last few years, Dodgers were, you know, wire-to-wire best team. They were the favorite to win the World Series pretty much every year. You don't have that this year. The Braves are the favorite. So I think just from the standpoint of maybe people, you know, questioning the Dodgers or overlooking the Dodgers, that can be an angle that Roberts can play and kind of motivate his club here. The other thing is, you know, you look at the run differential, a big difference here at Dodgers and Arizona. Arizona on the year, -15. Dodgers +207. So that tells me that Arizona maybe overperformed, got a little bit lucky, won a lot of one-run games here. To me, the Dodgers are going to rise to the top here, win this series. They're rested. They have home field. They've been one of the best home teams in baseball for many years at this point. World Series price +425. You know, if we get a 7-game series, Dodgers and Braves, it'll be great for baseball fans, but I think that's kind of a coin flip there. You probably have Atlanta a slight favorite. I think the play is the Dodgers to win the series and maybe put a flyer on the +425.
Bukes, is Orioles-Rangers as even as the odds indicate here?
I think so. I like the Orioles to win this overall. I think they are the team that's going to come out of this here. But the Orioles have the advantage in the pitching department. The Rangers need to cover a lot of innings here because that bullpen has been absolutely atrocious. And I'm actually surprised they're running Andrew Heaney here today because the Orioles are excellent against left-handed pitching. They should have started Dane Dunning. I think the Orioles get the lead here in Game 1, end up taking this series down.
All right, quickly here, what about the Twins and Astros, Josh?
I kind of like the Houston Astros today. You know, on the series price, they're -160. That seems a little bit low. I know the Twins finally got the monkey off their back, won a playoff game for the first time in forever. The Carlos Correa stuff, you know, he claims that he didn't want to cheat, which is revisionist history to me. I like Houston -1.5 games at +145.
All right, nice work, fellas. We still got a WNBA Finals preview coming up, but first, Stormy will stop by. We're going to dive in once again to a great, meaty slate around college football. All right, folks, back on this program we call The Sweat. We're right meow. We got Stormy, Bon, and Tony joining the party. Top of the morning. How are you?
I'm great and excited to sweat out some of these bets with you, Emerson. Let's go.
Let's do it, because week 6 here, Stormy, sneakily becoming a huge weekend for conference races and that push for the playoffs here. That includes Texas and Oklahoma, typically one of the highest scoring games on the season. Now the Longhorns doing all the scoring last year in that shutout victory. How do you like the Sooners' chances to contend a little more, especially for the victory today?
Yeah, the Red River bloodbath, as a colleague of mine at Visa and Matt Humans called it, 49-0 last year. It was ugly. I do expect Oklahoma to bounce back, a little Red River rivalry revenge spot. So I like alliteration.
God.
We're going to roll with it. These games, you said it, are typically really back and forth, and Oklahoma is a different team this year. The way that they're outscoring opponents from a betting perspective, they're 5-0 ATS, average cover margin by 2 touchdowns per game. And you have to remember, too, Dylan Gabriel was out in last year's meeting. And I know that doesn't make anything better when you're blown out 49-0, but he's healthy this year. He's off to a fast start. The offense overall is much better. My big question for Oklahoma is just, is their defense actually good? Yeah. Because they look much better in Brent Venables' second year. They're certainly deeper, but they're going to be put to the test in a different way against Quinn Ewers and Jonathan Brooks, who, how magnificent has he looked in the running back room? I think we get a back and forth game. 8 of the last 10 were decided by 1 score. So I like Texas to win. Okay. But I like Oklahoma to cover with the points.
All right, from 2 future SEC members to 2 current ones here. Kentucky's going to try to test the top-ranked Bulldogs and on the road. And despite being unbeaten, Bulldogs 0-4-1 ATS this season. Should we be embracing the Wildcats more as being a legitimate threat to the Dogs?
As much as I want to say yes, can't get on board.
Can't do it?
I know I can't. And I know that UGA hasn't covered a game yet, but they've also been favored by over 40 points in 3 of them. So I think it's to be expected that a team who lost 10 players to the NFL draft this past year, 15 the year prior, and has a new offensive coordinator and is working in a new quarterback, it's natural that they had some growing pains here early. I actually love this matchup for Georgia. I think this is going to be the coming out party game for them, show what they're made of after escaping at Auburn last week. And Devin Leary, I think, is still dinged up with that pectoral injury. He threw for just 69 yards last week against Florida. So give me the Dogs to roll. I like them to cover the 2-touchdown spread. And also for anybody who thinks Georgia could be on upset watch, because I've heard a lot of that talk this week, which is mind-boggling to me. They won 13 straight against the Wildcats. It's the longest win streak against an SEC opponent since the conference was formed in 1993.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks still waiting on that big, potentially blowout victory by Georgia to remind all of us why they are the top dogs. We also have Notre Dame. It's another primetime game against a ranked opponent here, this time against a very improved Louisville team. So to me, Stormy, this really screams trap game for Notre Dame with USC in town next week. What do you think?
Yeah, it's an interesting spot. You certainly have the trap angle mixed with coming off the back-to-back tough down-to-the-wire games against Ohio State and Duke, plus Louisville's on extended rest. They played Friday last week, and they're at home. I'm a big fan of Jeff Brom and what he's done. But I don't know. I don't think that this matchup's good for them, especially the way Jack Plummer's making decisions lately. He's got 6 touchdowns and 6 interceptions against opponents not named Boston College. So obviously had the blowout game that day, but the margin for error against a team like Notre Dame, I think, is so much smaller than the opponents that they've played. I was really unimpressed with how they performed against Indiana. Meanwhile, Sam Hartman, everybody's saying that he's taken a step back, but he's also faced the number 11 and number 5 pass defenses in college football the last 2 weeks. So with USC waiting in the wings, I actually take this more as the Irish need to have their get-right game on both sides of the ball before they face them. So I like the advantage at quarterback in the run game with the nation's leader in Audric Estime. I like the advantage in the trenches. And maybe, too, Louisville, I mean, they're in the national rankings and more people are talking about them the way that they've played. Sometimes when you start reading your clippings a little bit, that can make you crash with mistakes. So I like Notre Dame to win. I like them to cover in this spot.
Great.
And maybe they keep that ACC streak alive. Do you see that? It's like they're going for 31 in a row in the regular season.
Yeah, and the Irish have covered their last 2 single-digit spreads, too, against NC State and Duke. Stormy, while you're here, let's poke over to tomorrow. Let's poke over to Sunday, what's cooking around the NFL, because we're about a month into the season here. So we're really starting to get a handle on who teams really are. Joe Burrow and the Bengals, to me, they appear to be really broken, Stormy. He called their game in Arizona tomorrow a must-win. How much trouble Cincinnati in?
Ooh, a lot.
Yeah.
Oof. I mean,
Agreed.
that's all I can say. I feel like
Yep.
this game on the look ahead, Cincinnati was favored by 8.5. They reopened on Sunday as a 5-point favorite, and now we're seeing 3s across the board. I bet 5 right away. I think it's less bettable now with the movement, but they have looked bad. And quite frankly, I think are lucky to be 1-3 because they took advantage defensively that Monday night game with the Rams when LA's left tackle went down. So that opened the door for them to get to the quarterback. Joe Burrow is not the same. He is a shell of himself dealing with this calf injury. It doesn't make sense to me that they keep trotting him out there at 60%. He's got no mobility. He can't step into his throws. This stat, I think, is really telling. His 738 passing yards this season are 260 fewer than he's had through 4 games any other season of his career. And that's with the slow starts that he's had each year, too. So to me, that says a lot. They have 3 offensive touchdowns in 4 games, held to 3 just twice. T. Higgins has been missing practice all week with the rib injury. And Arizona's scrappy. A friend of mine said they're the best team that's losing.
Yeah.
And so
I mean, we saw what they did against Dallas, you know? I mean, that's a great example.
Exactly. They're putting up a fight. Josh Dobbs has been able to move the ball, hasn't thrown a pick yet. They should have beat the Giants. 2 of 3 of their losses have been by 4 points or less. So I think this will be a real test for the Bengals. It's hard for me to watch this team right now, given the expectations we had for them.
It's like they're a mess on offense. His calf isn't getting any better. Do you think it's an overreaction to say that Joe Burrow needs to take some games off?
No, I don't. I've been pushing for that. On the Lombardi line, Michael Lombardi and I were talking about it this week, and I feel like they're doing their quarterback and their team a disservice by continuing to throw him in there. And I get that Jake Browning's not the answer, right? But I feel like they're going to put themselves in a better position for the future by just letting this guy get healthy.
All right. Well, their upcoming schedule includes the still undefeated 49ers. They are joined in the 4-0 unbeaten department by the Eagles. Which one is more likely to lose this weekend, Stormy? Philly visiting the Rams or San Fran at home against Dallas?
Well, I'm a 49ers fan.
Oh,
so
all right.
Hopefully.
So tell me why it's
San
Philly.
Francisco.
Tell me why it's Philly then. Go ahead.
Well, they've looked vulnerable. I
Yes,
think we can
true.
all agree with that. And last week's overtime win against Washington, Emerson, we were talking about this off camera earlier. Like, that's kind of making me raise a few more eyebrows now that they had to go to overtime against a team that we just saw get embarrassed by the Chicago Bears, who I still, even after that performance, view them in my brain as one of the worst, if not the worst teams in the NFL right now. But then again, they are playing the Rams. And so Matt Stafford's hip concerns me. The injuries up front concern me. I know you're getting Cooper Kupp back, and we all love Puka Nacua, but it's going to be hard for the Rams to get that upset if your quarterback's hobbled. I'm super excited, though, for the Niners-Cowboys game. Like I said, I'm a fan. I know Dallas is big mad that their Super Bowl hopes got cut short each of the last 2 years by San Francisco. We've got 2 top 5 scoring offenses and scoring defenses going head-to-head. So regardless of outcome, although I hope it's San Francisco, it's going to be a great game.
Okay, since you're a San Fran fan, I want to ask you, because it's come up in recent conversation about the MVP, NFL MVP. It's a quarterback award. Where, though, right now is Christian McCaffrey in the conversation? Is he in the thick of it?
I think that he should be. I did a comparison looking at some of the numbers from he and Adrian Peterson back when he won it in 2012. And through at least this early game sample size, his numbers far exceed what AP did in every category to this point. I think it's obvious and that Josh Allen is the favorite, and rightfully so, for what he's been able to do. Like, if he continues to play at the level that he has the last 3 games, then he should win this award.
Okay.
But I would, if I had to make 2 bets right now, if you gave me $100, I would put it on Josh Allen and sprinkle that 20-1 on Christian McCaffrey.
Love it.
It's why not, right?
Yep,
Because
exactly.
For as good as Brock Purdy has been and as efficient as he's been as a passer, that offense still is only able to do so much of what it does because of the versatility of Christian McCaffrey and what they run through him.
All right, well, Josh Allen is about to run into the better Josh Allen tomorrow morning in London. We'll get you out of here with this. Best NFL bet this weekend. What sits atop your betting card right now?
I actually like Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills.
no.
Week 11.
No, don't do that. You know I'm a Jags fan. America's team.
I know. I'm sorry, but I think it's a good matchup for Buffalo.
That's
They're
fair.
firing on all cylinders offensively and defensively. So, yeah, I would say Buffalo -5.5, and that Cardinals bet I have +5 against Cincinnati.
Stormy, real quick, any upsets
Don't hate
brewing? And I'm not. Any upsets brewing? Quickly, what do you got?
There's a lot of short spreads. I could see the Texans winning again. I don't like Desmond Ridder and the Falcons. I could see the Colts upsetting Tennessee. I could see the Jets. If they show any semblance of what we saw last week against Kansas City, they can beat the Broncos. Any of those short spread dogs I like. They could be tempting.
Okay, you are awesome as always, Stormy. Look forward to talking to you again soon. We got to take a break on the other side, and then there were two, a WNBA Finals preview coming up. Brendan Glasheen, voice of the Connecticut Sun, in studio here to help you out. Coming up next. All right, as for all of those Brendan Glasheen and WNBA teases we've been doing throughout this show, just kidding.
The guy's a total idiot.
No, let's not go too hard on him here because road closures around our office mean that you cannot drive on said roads, and all roads leading to this studio.
Here's something incredible.
God.
You can just show up early. You don't have to show up on time. Like showing up early is actually pretty well. But let's swing the camera over here. Let's do this.
I did say showing up earlier would have been better, but hey, you live and learn. He's a kid, whatever. So yes, we're bumping up the fun game of tic-tac, yes or no.
That's creative.
Okay? Tic-tac, playoffs or no. So we're going to break down here. These are all 2-2 teams on the board. Which teams are in, which teams are not. Steve will take the X's for teams who are pretenders.
Correct.
Josh has the O's for the real contenders. We did, in the commercial break leading up to this, a fun game of rock, paper, scissors to see who decides to go first. Steve winning in 3 games there. So, Bukes, have at it. Who is the first
Well, this
X?
is what I did. I won, and then I deferred to Josh.
Oh, wow.
So Josh is going to start.
Okay. This is like Showcase Showdown.
Yeah, a little bit.
Price is
Yeah,
Right
a little
kind
bit.
of thing.
Yep.
All right, Josh, you're up first. Oh, again, you are dishing out who is a contender.
So we were debating this one earlier. Number one, who's going to screw this up? Will anyone get a tic-tac-toe? Probably unlikely here. So my job is to pick out the contenders, the teams that we think can make some moves here and maybe make the postseason. Now, I'm thinking from a strategic angle, I should probably take the Colts because they're in the middle. Gives me more options to make a tic-tac-toe. But I don't like the Colts to make the postseason right now. Colts are actually minus 350 to miss the playoffs. Rookie quarterback, so I'm going to go against that. So I'm going to go with the Cleveland Browns here. I'm high on the Cleveland Browns. I'm going to put an O right here. So I like the Browns for a couple different reasons. Number one, their win total is 9.5. Again, all these teams are 2-2. 9.5 over minus 140, so odds makers are expecting them to make the postseason. At minus 160, that's their playoff odds. So do you win 10 games? Can you make the postseason? These are both minus numbers at this point. Deshaun Watson obviously has had his ups and downs, but more time in the system. Kind of a believer in Stefanski, his offensive system, and then really it's the defense of the Browns, both pass defense and rush defense. They've been great with Myles Garrett and their up-front guys defensively. So, Steve, I'm going to go with the Browns. That's my first tic-tac-toe. Where are you going, Steve?
Okay, so I'm trying to play this out here. Now, theoretically, I have a lot of areas that I can go, but I'm actually going to go right to the Falcons here. I think the Falcons are just total frauds.
Yes,
I mean, at this
are.
point in the season, we're waiting for Taylor Heineke to take over at this point. Desmond Ridder has been absolutely atrocious for this team. I mean, when you look at the first few games of the season, they didn't even want him throwing the ball. They were running the ball at one of the highest rates in the league. That has come down because they're trying to catch up in these games. They're averaging 15.5 points per game at this point. Something needs to be done because that team is so talented on offense. You have Kyle Pitts, who you never even hear about. You have Bijan Robinson, who's doing everything he can to try to make this team win, but it's just not happening at this point. Unless they make a change at quarterback, nothing is going to change with this Falcons team right now. Desmond Ridder is not the answer at this point, so that's my first X.
Jonnu Smith, the leading receiver on that team.
That's absolutely,
yards.
insane.
Yeah, which is 45 more than anyone else.
So
Josh,
my next
what do you
one
got?
here, I'm going to go with the Saints. Big fan of the Saints, and I'm actually a big fan of the Saints in particular tomorrow because I have them +1 against the New England Patriots. So Steve, you're going to leave this open for me next one so I can catch this one with the Rams. But with the Saints here, number one, go back to the summer. They were the favorite to win their division. Now Tampa Bay's been off to a great start, but Baker Mayfield, I'm not a huge believer. I think you might see some negative regression. I think it's an opportunity for the Saints at a pretty decent number to take them. Right now, their win total is 9.5. It is under minus 125, but it's kind of weird. Their win total is juice under, but to make the postseason is yes at minus 135. So that tells me, if they can go 9-8, that could win this division here. They have a really good defense. If you can get a win against the Patriots, you're well on your way. Again, this is more not a bet on the Saints, but a bet against all those other teams in that division. I'll go with the Saints here, Steve.
Okay, how about last week, though? Alvin Kamara, one of the weirdest lines you will ever see in his return from his suspension. 14 targets, 13 catches for a big, beefy 33 yards. yards. That's horrible.
I mean, I will say, though, about the Saints, though, specifically, that offense is a banger. Like, it really is. And they should be better than they are at this point. So I have to go with the Rams here, or else we're going to have a lot of time to fill in this segment. But I do actually believe that the Rams are a pretender at this point. They've gotten out to a much better start than I think a lot of people anticipated. Cooper Kupp's coming back. That's obviously going to be a nice boost to that offense. Defensively, though, this team has some issues, and I think that's what's really going to be their biggest detriment moving forward. You look at their upcoming schedule, they got a kind of a mixed bag of teams that they're going up against. They're going to see the Eagles coming up, then they got the Cardinals, Steelers. We'll see where the Steelers are at when that time comes around. Then the Cowboys are coming up too as well. I mean, when you really look at it in that division, you're basically fighting for second place at this point, right? Because obviously 49ers at this point are 4-0. They're running away with that division here. But I think the schedule and that defense is what's really going to catch up to the Rams upcoming here. So I think that the Rams are a pretender at this point. Nice start to get off here. We didn't know what we were going to get out of Matthew Stafford with that back issue, but I don't think they're going to go anywhere moving forward.
Yeah, and we spoke earlier about the potential or Kupp's impact there on Nakua's progress so far in his production. 39 catches for 501 yards, a pace not only to set rookie records, but all-time single-season NFL records. The pace is about 166 catches and nearly 2,200 yards. That may end up slowing down a little bit.
I think so. So, Steve, for my next one here, I'm going to go with the Chargers. So we're going to put the O right here. And maybe I psyched you out. Maybe I will have to go with the Indianapolis Colts in this one. But I would say with the Chargers, number one, you're banking on the quarterback, Justin Herbert. He broke had an injury to his left arm, didn't bother him. As long as he's healthy, I think this is a team that's going to put up really good numbers offensively. It's a quarterback-driven league. It's an offensive league. So I think the Chargers, going into this, I think their win total was 9.5. Juiced up over. It's 9.5 juiced up under now, minus 125. But the yes, no to make the playoffs is pretty much a coin flip. Right now it's slightly no, minus 115, yes, minus 105. But this is a team in this division. I think you're going to have the Chiefs win this division, but the Raiders aren't great. To me, it's a spot here to bank on the Chargers. Maybe if they get their offense going, they get some guys healthy, you make a postseason run. They were expected to make the postseason when we started. So, Steve, where are you going? I think you got to go Colts, right?
I mean, we do have to go Colts here, but I'm okay with this because I don't think that this team is going to go very far here. Now, to be fair, if I can get this X on, to be fair, Anthony Richardson has been probably the second best quarterback that we've seen out of this rookie class thus far, only trailing C.J. Stroud at this point. But the thing is, and this has kind of been the biggest knock on him when we were talking about the draft and what his player profile is going to be, is that he still needs a lot of seasoning to go and play in the NFL here. He has not been great when passing the ball. You look at his numbers here, 57% completion percentage, 6.7 yards per attempt at this point. I mean, the passing game, the receiving game for the Colts feels like it's almost been non-existent at this point. Like if the Colts are moving downfield, it's been because of their run game, and it's been kind of because of how Richardson has played so far. So I think like that is going to catch up to them too. And then you look at some of the games they have coming up. They have the Titans coming up here, which the way to beat the Titans is to throw the ball, and that has not been the strength for the Colts. Then they face the Jags, the Browns, the Saints, like some good teams that can get good coverage on the receivers, which has not been their strength to begin with. So where are those wins going to come from? Like, is it safe to say that they could theoretically go 0-4 in those next 4 games? I think that's actually a real possibility here. So while they're 2-2 now, I think they're definitely going to be under 500 by a pretty wide margin within the next 4 games here. So I'm going to put the X on them there. And that now means, Josh, that you have to make a case for the Packers, which I think, by the way, pretty easy. But go
I think
ahead.
so too. So I have to. I'm just kidding, Steelers. Just kidding, Steelers. I got to stop you from winning this one. We're both competitive people. So I'll go Packers.
I don't think anybody can win.
I know this. It's like soccer, Steve. It's like win, lose, draw.
Yeah,
I think there was smart money on the draw on this one for this one. But I would say Packers. They're kind of right where we expect them to be. Their win total, I believe, was around 7.5 going into the year. Right now, it is 8.5. It's minus 110 both sides. This is a team that I can't quite figure out. There are certain times where it feels like Jordan Love is the next guy. There are other times where he disappoints you a little bit. So Love is obviously a question mark here. But I would say they're expected to miss. It's minus 145. But I could see crazy things happen here. I mean, the Bears have issues. The Vikings, remember, they had a great year last year. They won all those one-score games. Now negative regression has really hurt them this season. So I think if you're looking at the Packers, you're not going to catch the Lions. Maybe you can make a wild card here. Again, it's all about the growth of Jordan Love. Can he continue with experience to get better and better? That would be my outlook here, Steve. So where are you going? You only got 2 options left. Where you got this one?
I like the Texans, honestly. So I have to go with the Steelers here. Who, to be fair, this was...
Whoa, wait a minute. What are you doing? What are you doing? You're going to give them the freaking win?
You know what happened?
Oh,
wait
my
a second.
God.
You know what happened?
I psyched you out.
He did. because I looked at that board.
Oh my God, this is
by
pathetic.
default.
Now listen, let me explain myself. I looked at this board and I said, I don't think there's a chance for everybody to win. And I overlooked this here. But that's the beauty of tic-tac-toe. Stuff like this happens. If you're not mentally ready for this game,
you're not mentally ready.
stuff like this is going to happen.
It
Josh
was
is going
right
to win.
in front of you, and you just gifted him the victory.
But you know what? That's why we make this segment. That's why it's an entertaining segment, because stuff like that is going to happen. But let me tell you
It
why.
is- it
you know
is
what?
so
At
much
least while
better
we
than
have the
that.
time here, let me tell you why the Steelers are not going to make it anyways. This was a team that I was high on before the year because I thought Kenny Pickett was going to take that extra step forward. But let me tell you something.
all right.
I'll play fair. I'll play fair. The Steelers are alive.
Historic victory.
because of how this division has played out right now. But Kenny Pickett being injured, all the injuries to the Steelers are not going to make it. Josh, congrats.
Let's go, CJ Stroud. Here
Oh
we
my
go.
God.
Yeah, hey, best quarterback, best team in the
Mentally
AFC
not in
South
it.
right now,
I'm
baby.
taking a break. I
Watch
wasn't
out
in
for
it.
the
All right.
Jags, though.
I wasn't in it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the Jags weren't on there because they're contenders, okay? One more break to go, one more block to go in this show. The Sweat returns right after this. 7 months ago, well before the WNBA season began, the entire basketball world was predicting a Aces Liberty Finals. And sure enough, after a record 40-game regular season and 2 playoff rounds, the long-awaited showdown has arrived. Game 1, Sunday in the Sin City. That's tomorrow. The league's 2 super teams will meet to determine a champion. Aces, 5-point home favorites. At stake in this matchup, Vegas attempting to become the first team since the 01-02 Sparks to repeat as champions. The Liberty trying to win their first title in franchise history. Back here live on The Sweat, our final block for this Saturday edition of the show. Josh is back, Steve is back, I am Emerson Latzia. Speaking of at stake, gentlemen, which NFL team has the most at stake tomorrow? Who would you say, Steve? Like, Bengals are the first team that comes to mind for me.
Yeah, I think that's a solid choice there to talk about the Bengals because, you know, obviously this team was coming in with a lot of hype this year, rightfully so. Like, that offense is so good when everything is going right. But obviously Joe Burrow has been a liability at this point, and you're obviously not going to go away from Joe Burrow. He just has to get through this calf injury at this point. But I mean, this was a team that was, I think, either a co-favorite or the favorites to win that division when it started here, and now the division is pretty wide open. I mean, even the Bengals I think there's still a legitimate chance that the Bengals can still be in the division hunt as the season goes on because, like, you know, the Browns starting to fall apart a little bit here. The Ravens have been kind of a mixed bag
the Ravens,
so far.
I feel like, are just, you know, keeping their head above
water. Yeah, they're doing just enough
injuries
to kind of stay into contention here. So, I mean, the Bengals are huge underdogs to win the division. I think they're plus 7-1 at this point now. I don't mind that, you know, getting a little sprinkle on that because if Joe Burrow's healthy and that offensive line can actually protect him, which has been an issue since he's come into the year, I mean, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But yeah, this is huge for them there. They can't afford another loss on that record.
Bengals will once again need to save their season tomorrow in Arizona right now, Josh. They're 3-point favorites.
Tough matchup, too.
It is a tough matchup.
Kind of low-key.
Yeah, because we talked about this with Stormy earlier in this show. Like, the Cardinals have been a little more competitive than many of us believed they were going to be. Oh, yeah, and they upset Dallas like just 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, and Dobbs has been pretty good at quarterback.
Yeah, he hasn't thrown a pick, right?
Offensive output's actually been better here for the Cardinals than it has been for the Bengals. Also, there's a big injury. T. Higgins, I believe, is questionable for tomorrow. So if you're going to miss him, that's going to be definitely a negative. But Emerson, you asked the question, who has the most to lose tomorrow? Don't go too far from our studio. It's the Patriots, man. I think this is the kind of the Alamo for the Patriots. I think if you lose this game,
they're done.
And again, I think they're minus 500 to miss the postseason now. Their win total going into the year was 7.5 down to 6.5. So the odds makers kind of told us, maybe a lot of us didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to believe it as a Patriots fan, diehard born and raised Pats fan. But they're kind of telling us it could be a long year. But if you lose at home to the Saints tomorrow, you go to 1-4, then the question becomes, is Belichick going to make it through the year? You know, it's all on Kraft. Does he keep him around just to get the record? The fans are restless. What's Mac Jones going to do? You know, is he going to turn the ball over again? You could be looking at a firestorm of bad news for New England. Then it becomes the conversation of, you know, tank for Caleb Williams. Can you imagine that tanking as a Patriots fan? Really unheard of here. I like the Saints tomorrow. I'm going to go with the market. They're opening, getting 2.5. It's down to 1. To me, this is the biggest game, most consequential game of tomorrow. And even though I'm a Pats fan, I like the Saints, and I think the sky's falling in Foxborough.
I will say, I think there is next to no chance Belichick gets let go in the middle of the season. No way. I don't think that ever happens because I think Robert Kraft has enough respect for Belichick to let him go out on his own terms for everything that has happened through this franchise for the past, 22 years?
Yes.
At this point, there is zero chance that Belichick would be let go in the middle of the year. No way. I don't think that would happen. That would put, for as bad as it's been, that would be such a black eye on everything that has been accomplished in this franchise for the past, you know, since the turn of 2001. There's
but
no
Steve,
way.
let's say they go 4-13. You know, he makes it through the season. Do you bring him back just to get the record? I think it's
but then you can work that out in the offseason.
Sure.
Then you can go out on your own terms or however you want to do it. There's no chance they let him go in the middle of the season.
Well, guys, if you open up the Sportsbook app, there's like a new feature. You scroll over to the Stats Hub, and you could poke around, and there's some great information in there. And we tweeted out a video late last night on the DraftKings Network Twitter feed. Just a fun fact. So,
tell us.
Road favorites, I'm going to tell you right now, have been taking care of business to start this season. Through the first 4 weeks of the year, they're 14-9-3 against the spread. That means they've covered nearly 60% of the time. So in week 5, this week, gentlemen, 5 teams are favored on the road: Baltimore, Tennessee, Philadelphia, Cincinnati, and Kansas City. Which one are you most confident in covering this week, week 5, Josh?
Tennessee Titans. That one jumped out to me just from
Yeah.
the standpoint of a dog to fave line move. There's certain system matches that I play no matter what. Fading trendy dogs, different angles. I'll throw these buzzwords at you. But the whole thought process is when you open as a dog and you flip to a favorite, it takes a lot of respected money from wise guys to flip that number. So this game actually opened Tennessee -1.5 at home. It's now flipped to, it was Indy -1.5 at home. It's flipped to Tennessee now -2.5 on the road. Really good bet split here. Only around 60% of bets are on the Tennessee Titans, but they're taking into account almost 80% of the money. So this is a money line play for me, and I also love that we're digging into these betting systems because I think it's really important. I think to me, betting systems are like a cherry on top. If they can kind of validate something that you're looking at, it just gives you more confidence to sweat the game.
Okay, what do you think here, Steve?
Can I take it in a different direction?
Yeah, you can.
The team that I think will not cover, Chiefs, -3.5. Chiefs have been a horrible team against the spread, dating back to the past 2 years. If you look at their record against the spread since the beginning of last year, they're 10-13-1 since the beginning of last year. As a road favorite since last year, they're 4-6 against the spread at this point. And this isn't like a thing that I'm like, oh, I'm high on the Vikings at this point, because the Vikings have just been an absolute mess. For as good as this team should be, they've been pretty much a mess so far. But for whatever reason, the Chiefs do not cover in these type of situations. And it's been something that's been going on for a couple of years now. It's like they kind of start off hot and then they kind of let their foot off the gas a little bit here. I don't really know what it is. Like, I can't like put my finger on it, but the Chiefs have failed to like really come through for bettors because they're obviously always a highly public play, but they always seem to fail to come through, especially in these type of games here, as a way favorite. So I think actually the Vikings can cover in this game at 3.5. I think that's starting to become one of my more favorite plays of the week.
And you have the mayor of Minneapolis as well, like looking real thirsty, begging Taylor Swift to come to the city for the game as well. By the way, all sorts
That's
of
the type of nonsense that people don't need to know.
Okay, no, actually they do, because
No, they don't.
Numbers have been up on television. See, people are tuning in.
What does that have to do?
It has to do with everything.
Okay, but
it has to do with everything, Steve. All sorts of
This
systems there
is a
for you on the
betting
DraftKings
show.
Sportsbook. Nothing, at least currently, Taylor Swift related to help you. So we're here to help you make money and hammer away on some DK Sportsbook bets. I think the game of the week, though, is what we're going to see tomorrow night. The Cowboys in San Francisco here, Steve. And there are some now saying Brock Purdy is elite. He's been excellent this season, okay? But the Cowboys defense will be a step up in competition than what he has seen so far this season. Is there a chance that we see San Francisco lose its first game tomorrow night?
I don't think San Francisco is going to lose. This is more about, are the Cowboys legit or not? Because obviously they had that loss against Arizona.
Okay, so big measuring stick here for
This
Dallas.
is a measuring stick for the Cowboys, not the 49ers. Because the 49ers are going to be there regardless of the outcome that comes in this game tomorrow night. Because the 49ers offense, and this is not a slight against Brock Purdy, I think this is just reality. I think you can almost insert anybody into that as a quarterback for the 49ers, and they're going to have success. If you put Andy Dalton into the 49ers, do you still think that they're 4-0? I still think that they can be 4-0 if they have Andy Dalton in that offense, because they're that good. Whether it's Debo, whether it's McCaffrey, whether it's Brandon Ayuk, whether it's George Kittle. That's like the opposite of the Patriots. The Brock Purdy is surrounded by capable playmakers. Mac Jones, even though he's horrible anyways, is not surrounded by anyone, and there's a shock. The Patriots can't move the ball downfield. So this is a measuring stick for me for the Cowboys, and I think that's how this game should be viewed, if the Cowboys are actually going to be a contender or not this season.
And then Randy Gregory to the 49ers like yesterday, and it seems like, I know he's been a little up and down, but this is still like a top draft pick we're talking about, and a dude who was paid a boatload of money just a couple seasons ago because of his potential. It's like the rich get richer there. And then there's Claypool to the Dolphins was another move. The fact that Chicago was able to get anything for Chase Claypool is incredible. Which dude has...
Is a sixth-round pick something?
Yeah, I mean, it's something considering they were getting ready to release the damn guy.
Sure.
But which guy has the opportunity to make a bigger impact this season, Josh? Real quick, less than a minute to go.
It's a tough one.
Yeah.
I'd say
Not
Gregory
Claypool.
just because
Yeah.
he's situational pass rusher. I would say also San Fran, you're never going to get them on a money line price that short at home. I like the -185
Yeah.
on San Fran to win that game.
I mean, Claypool, if they can tap
No.
into the numbers,
No.
what he was able to do his rookie year, last couple of years has been a dud, and obviously you don't know what he is like inside the locker room, but it's not like he's not
Barring an
talented,
injury,
and he's 25.
barring an injury, there's no
I mean,
real
really?
role for him.
Yeah, so just go to Tyreek Hill, just go to Jalen Waddle,
Yeah.
or hand it off to your 2 running backs. You're running for 4 touchdowns like every stinking
Wrap
week.
up the show.
Sounds good to me. Jacksonville kicking off 9:30 Eastern time tomorrow morning against the Bills, upset Central. We'll see everyone back here 8 o'clock Eastern time for a Sunday edition of The Sweat.